Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, the secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Whoops, I'm muted. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Night Vision again. I hope this is not your first time, but if it is, we sure welcome you and hope this is not your last time. Got a great show planned for tonight. We've got our wonderful historian, James Martin, back talking about some of the mysteries of history. Tonight, we're going to be looking into the founding fathers and actually the father of our country, George Washington. We might James might be imparting some information that you have not heard. He certainly tells me things that I don't know every single day, and this was one of them that I was not really fully aware of. Once he started talking about it, and then I started looking into it on my own, I did see that, I had a vague recollection of something, certainly not something that we taught in history classes at school. Before we get started with the show, I wanted to let you all know that we're very excited that we've just established a brand new KGRA TikTok channel, and I hope you'll make your way on over there and follow us. We've got some exciting videos that we're loading up every single day, multiple videos each day, and we are going to be streaming some shows live from there. I think very soon in the near future, I'm going to be doing an interview with Bishop James Long, and we're going to live stream it. So it'll be both on Bishop Long's TikTok and the KGRA TikTok channel, and maybe our other formats will be live as well. Also, if you get a chance, check us out on Instagram, because everything is going up there as well. And we've had lots and lots of views and a great response. And I'm really happy about it, really proud of it. And our colleague, Maximo Verone in Argentina, is the one that's really putting in all the work. And I'm just sort of dabbling every now and then in helping him out, but he's really the force behind the new TikTok channel. So I hope you go over there and give us a follow. So show Maximo your appreciation for what he's doing, because he's doing a heck of a job. But before we go any further, I think we ought to get started on tonight's show, because our time is always so limited and there's always so much to talk about. And it's been a long time since James has been here. Hi, James.
Hi, everyone. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Good to be back. Certainly an interesting show coming up. Yes.
Yeah, it's so good to be back, recording new shows. I've been off for a couple of weeks. I mean, life has just seemed to have happened, and one thing after another. But hopefully things are mellowing out a little bit for both of us, and we'll be able to spend a little more time with our viewers from here on out. And got some other great shows coming as well. Going to have Court Lindell on again. He says he's found some big secret about Rennes-le-Chateau, so I'm going to let him break it on Night Vision. And then also coming up, we've got Danielle Agnew, the psychic medium, and everyone loves it when Danielle comes on, because she just sort of bursts on the screen like a big ball of sunshine. And she's really interesting, and she's going to tell us about some recent interviews that she has done with an extraterrestrial and interviews with angels. So we'll see what that's all about. I'm certainly all ears and all eyes if she's got any photographic evidence as well. But anyway, that's Danielle. We love her. So anyhow, James, We are going to be talking today about the father of the United States of America, George Washington. And, I learned a little bit about him, it seems like each year, most of it from people in England and not in this country. But what are you going to tell us tonight that we don't know? What's this about a spy ring?
Yes, about the Culper spy ring. So my interest with this actually it started off with research for a book, specifically, in fact, to do with the Newport Tower. So if you haven't already, there's a book out there which was co-authored between me and Tim Wallace-Murphy called Uncharted, and towards the end of that book, we look at the Newport Tower. And some historians had suggested, the Newport Tower was built by someone called Benedict Arnold. Not that Benedict Arnold, no, the great-grandfather of the infamous Benedict Arnold. And that led me down a bit of a rabbit hole, actually, looking at, what did this Benedict Arnold, the infamous Benedict Arnold, how did he end up, betraying the infant United States, not even really a country at this point? What led him to defect essentially to the British side? And this is where I came across the Culper spy ring. So I suppose, if we want to start off really, before George Washington became Honest George, he was actually involved in a bit of dishonesty. And that is to say, George Washington was America's first spy master. Wow. He like I say, we know him as Honest George, but actually he was involved in, a lot of subterfuge and espionage and all of this. So that's essentially
reasons, right?
That depends on his perspective.
He did it on behalf of the new country.
Yes.
So he was sneaking around on the enemy, right?
Yeah, well, not him necessarily, but he was directing quite a lot of espionage. So, I mean, the first person, if we have a look at what happened before the Culper spy ring, there is someone who I think is known to a few people. This is someone called Nathan Hale.
Oh, yes.
And again, my knowledge of Nathan Hale started off with, I'm sure there was a U.S. Navy ship, the USS Nathan Hale. I think, saw action or did whatever. But anyway, this Nathan Hale, for those who don't know, was essentially a message was put out by George Washington during the, I'm saying this from a British perspective, that little squabble that we had called the Revolutionary War. But a message had gone out from
military operation.
Yeah, words like that. But a message had gone out essentially for a volunteer, really, on September the 8th, 1776. And the calls for a volunteer was essentially to go behind British lines before what we would then know as the Battle of Harlem Heights, to gather information on the British before moving in for that battle. And the person who volunteers for that is, of course, Nathan Hale. And he is disguised, at the time, we're not talking about James Bond style things, but his disguise when he goes behind lines is as a schoolmaster. And he successfully gathered information which was critical intelligence before the battle. It was essentially, some of the intelligence was to establish what was going on in New York, specifically Manhattan, which at that point, and for a lot of the American Revolutionary War, was in British hands. So you've got New York, or, which again in history sometimes referred to as Yorktown, or Fort York, or, et cetera, et cetera. So, he goes behind enemy lines. Unfortunately, whilst being undercover and all of the rest of it, he is ultimately caught. Nathan Hale then is killed as a spy. Now, just at this point, it's worthwhile as noting that when we're looking at espionage and spies, essentially, if you were caught, you are summarily executed. Now, there might be a mock trial, but essentially, if there is a suspicion in wartime that you were a spy, you were executed. Now, in what would become the Napoleonic Wars a few years after, this was very common, actually. The spies from both sides, when caught, killed and all of that. And that is what happens to Nathan Hale.
So wasn't that kind of the trigger, or one of the triggers for George Washington to order this group to be formed?
Yeah, well, Nathan Hale's best friend was someone called Benjamin Talmadge. And Benjamin Talmadge is someone who hails from Setauket, and Setauket in New York. And essentially, Setauket becomes the epicenter for espionage in many ways. So Benjamin Talmadge gathers essentially some of his most close childhood friends, people he grew up with, etc., in Setauket, recruits them to provide intelligence. And again, we are talking about people who are, doing run-of-the-mill day-to-day jobs, fishermen, that kind of stuff, tavern owners, the son of a Presbyterian minister, all of this. So it's really useful to have people behind enemy lines who can sneak information out. But really the person for what would become the Culper spy ring is Benjamin Talmadge. Now, as I say, he was best friend.
It was named Culper because it was near the town of Culpeper. Is that right?
Well, actually, when Talmadge proposes to George Washington that we need to have an intelligence system, the British certainly have one, and I think we'll come into to that in a little bit.
That was MI1.
I can't remember what MI1 was. I think that was the was that
MI0.
There were lots of MIs, up to 20, I think. But yes, in essence, yes. James Bond minus 007 at this point. But yeah, so he's just, that we need an intelligence branch, and Washington is the person who names it. And Washington names it, he is the Culper spy ring, but in essence, he names it after Culpeper. And that's Culpeper in its county in Virginia. So, in essence, Culpeper becomes Culper. And it becomes a little bit more difficult to say, doesn't it? Because when you're saying Culper, and some people have referred to it.
Culpeper. But
Culpeper is a bit
Kuiper.
difficult. Or Kuiper belt, yes, and all of that.
Yeah. But okay, so he's the one that chose that name, and he chose it for a county in Virginia. Were they in Virginia, or were they up in New York at that time?
Where it was that they established everything is up for a little bit of debate. I suspect I suspect that Washington chose Virginia because he's from, I think he was born in Pope's Creek or something like that, which is in Virginia. So it's probably a county he was familiar with, just because he hailed from Virginia, would be my suggestion.
I see.
So we've got the.
Go ahead. Sorry. No. You go ahead.
I was just going to say that we've got here the origins of a spy ring. Now we've got a name, we've got all of this, but following the death of Nathan Hale, secrecy needs to be ramped up. And this is where, there's a few things. I mean, we can go into some of the tricks that they were using and some of the techniques for passing secrets in a little while. But what I find intriguing is they establish a number system for the agents. So you wouldn't be Renee Barnett, you would be Agent 812, let's just say. And that, to history, has been very interesting because we didn't really understand that much about this spy ring until as late as the 1930s. And then became the task of, there's lots of written reports about Agent 711, 711, which I understand is a petrol station and convenience store in the United States. But any guesses on Agent 711?
Yeah. Who was it?
George Washington.
Oh, was it? Oh.
Yeah. So we've got, for example, I'll just read some out for you. So Long Island is known as 728. You've got someone called Robert Townsend, whose alias is Samuel Culper, excuse me, is Agent 723. Abraham Woodhull, who's Samuel Culper Sr., is Agent 722.
Didn't they have like codes that they wrote in codes?
Yeah.
Or was it just the number system?
Well, this is just where we've started. So the first thing is, lessons learned from the death of Nathan Hale. If you're going to dress yourself as a schoolmaster, I think it was be specific, a Dutch schoolmaster, because Dutch schoolmasters dress differently, I guess. I don't know. In fact, because he was known to someone called Robert Rogers, who was in charge of the Queen's infantry. No, he was in charge of the Rangers, the Queen's Rangers. He was a Scotsman. Because he had been identified by, his outfit and also his visage and all of this. He was caught. So they've learned the lessons, and what they've done is by numbering places, you've removed the name. Also, Washington himself as spymaster, he is the ultimate authority for this new spy ring, didn't know the identities of the people who were working for him. I just want to say, just at this point, maybe skipping ahead slightly, but one of the key reasons for the success of this spy ring is actually due to the use of women. Now, women at the time were not seen as any real threat because what would they know? But actually, you've got and I'll just give you an idea of this. There is someone called Agent 355. And, whilst, again, women aren't considered to be any threat to any military commanders, it means that they can spy uninterrupted. So cooks and maids who were perhaps providing food and what have you to British generals, etc., were, two ears, one mouth, having a good listen and then whispering onto various other intelligence assets. Agent 355 is known, or probably best known, as the intelligence gatherer who is suspected is someone called Anna Strong, but unfortunately we base that upon a cryptic reference from Abraham Woodhull, who I've just mentioned. She is a key for providing intelligence that led ultimately to the actions of Benedict Arnold, and providing information that there is a senior general who is going to betray the revolutionary cause. So there are other women that are known as well. You've got Selah Strong, for example. Selah Strong is the husband of Anna or Nancy Smith Strong, who again was active in the spy ring. So just, if we're thinking about James Bond, we sort of have to think about Jane Bond as well, because it really, without the women behind the lines, etc., this entire spy ring wouldn't have functioned.
Oh, wow. Now, you said that George Washington didn't know the names of the people who were in the spy ring. Was that so that, and was that the case throughout? I mean, did they all not know who each other was? And was that because if they were captured, they wouldn't be able to give up any of their comrades, or what was the purpose of that?
Well, yes, in essence, it's a bit like the resistance cells, if you think about it in France during World War II, the Maquis, and various other resistance cells, that you don't provide information about the names of people in other cells, etc., because exactly that, if you get caught and you reveal. Now, it is more likely that the numbers were known, but the identities weren't. So, we do know this. For example, if you're referring to 7-Eleven, let's say, I'm not. This isn't a real example. I'm just saying, if you are referring to 7-Eleven and you're under torture or you've been captured and what, you don't know who that is, so you can't reveal. Right. And then that means then if you've got counterintelligence on the British side, they're then having to try and piece together numbers and see what's what. Just bearing in mind what I've already alluded to here, New York City is referred to as 727. So if someone's captured, not all of these numbers are agents. So you'd be trying to find who 727 is.
Who's the person? Who's the place? What's the,
Yeah.
That would be very confusing, trying to figure it out.
And so, the origins and the beginnings of this spy ring are in secrecy, as you would expect. We're not talking about volunteers for someone to go behind the line anymore. What we have is an established network. And specifically, the network, I haven't read anything that suggests it was operating, let's say, in the Carolinas, for example. This seems to be very specific around where the British are stationed in New York and around broader New England, as opposed to some of the places in the South, as we would refer to it. But yeah, Washington didn't know the identity of everyone, although there were some people that he was aware of. So, I can get into, if you want me to, some of the ways in which they were keeping secrets above the numbers, if you want.
Yeah. That's interesting.
We've essentially got, let's keep with the James Bond, shall we? We've got Q. we've got someone who, well, a few people who have developed specifically methods to keep things secret. And there's a bit of an industry for secrecy now. So what was common at the time, let's just ignore the spy ring. If you wanted to pass intelligence, if you wanted to pass secrets, you would do so in writing. And quite often what people would do is use lemon juice on paper, which then...
ink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you
invisible ink.
Put a heat source near the paper, have a good look through and you can see all the notes. Well, the problem with that, it was a little bit too easy to check. So they developed chemicals that made it a little bit more difficult. The use of things like iodine and boiled eggs was also something that's been proposed. So you can write on the shell of a boiled egg, then leave it, peel the egg, and you'll find the message actually within the on the egg itself, inside the egg. Now, but imagine that if you're carrying some eggs and some bread and all the rest of it, it's not going to look it's not going to look unusual, is it? It's just going to look like part of the day-to-day. So by the standards of today, it's probably a bit primitive. But at the time, this is absolutely revolutionary. And the ink they referred to, this invisible ink for, like I say, the eggs paper was called sympathetic stain. That's what they called it. So, there's on top of the invisible ink, what they would do is write between the lines of what appeared to be, just normal writing. So in the gap between the sentence above and the one below. So it's very crude, but the use of invisible inks would mean that you could visually then begin to decode key intelligence. The British might struggle, to decode. Again, you've got the use of the numbers, and there is another aspect here, which is some of the codes for, so Abraham Woodhull uses 10, the number 10 for New York, for his own purposes. These agents are having to commit all of these numbers to memory, which, if you can imagine, the agents are, these agents know that if they are caught or even suspected, they face execution. And I don't know about you, but when, if your life's in threat or there's some anxiety or something like this, I'm not remembering everything.
No. Oh my gosh.
So it really is quite. He used 40 for post riders as well. People who are delivering correspondence, etc. Talmage also develops the use of particular codes as well that would need to be decoded by more senior people in the spy ring. And this involved the creation then of a dictionary. And there were only a few copies of these dictionaries, the little pocket dictionaries, with the list of verbs, nouns, people, places that then corresponded to code numbers. And these dictionaries were given to, I've mentioned Abraham Woodhull, of Setauket, good friend of Benjamin Talmage. He had one. You had George Washington, Townsend, who had them. And these small little...
If those dictionaries had fallen into enemy hands, would they have been able to decipher them? I mean, were those like the key to everything?
In a way, yes. Yes. There were, there there was another layer on top of that. So here's the dictionary, and if you're then referring to people, remember you've got this other code system. But if you're writing if you want to say, hello, my name is James Martin, you'd have to commit some of that to numbers. So there is a little bit of protection. But yeah, ultimately, if that dictionary fell into enemy hands, the new dictionaries would have to be produced. So
apparently none of them did.
Not that I'm aware of, no. And in fact, given the success of the ring, I think that they kept that very secret. I did read an account. I mean, this was a few years ago, that these books, these dictionaries, as I'm calling them, were essentially, if you lose this, you lose your life. So they must have been concealed in very hard to find places and used only in in absolute secrecy.
Now, in this group, I know it seems like their purpose and their mandate, by and large, was to report on the movement of British troops. Was there anything else that they might have been up to that was giving them more information, or was it just strictly they were just wanting to, keep whatever forces the revolutionaries had apprised of where the British were going?
It's not just military. The British have a relatively advanced intelligence system. And so, for example, the British were trying to flood the currency being used by the revolutionaries, trying to flood as many counterfeit notes into the economy to collapse the economy of the revolutionaries.
Oh, wow.
So, and there was a reason why after the war, certainly the northern states continued to use the British pound, as a result of an unstable economy. Now, the spy ring had intelligence of that. So then being able to identify these counterfeits became really important, because if you can't afford to pay your soldiers either with notes or whatever's counterfeit, then you don't have an army. And we know from Washington's struggles anyway, many periods the Continental Army were demoralized due to lack of pay and provisions, etc. So this was a very cunning, I have to say, from the British, but again was intercepted by the Culper spy ring. So they're not just doing intelligence to establish where enemy soldiers are, or troop movements, fleet movements, or anything like that. They're also getting counter-terrorism. That's it.
Yeah.
So like I say, there's lots of things. Now, initially, yes, you've got signals that are being used to initially signals that are being used for people who are going across the Sound, as they used to say, going across the Sound into British territory. They developed various noises, owl noises, which a trick that they'd taken from the Native Americans, to enable people to get behind enemy lines and crucially escape. So all of that, certainly initially, that's really what they're up to. But as things move on and things develop, there are much more complicated intelligence operations, etc.
Not to jump the gun too much, but I'm just curious as to, at the end of the day, after the revolution, was this sort of considered the prototype of, or did it sort of continue on but evolve into a different agency or something? Is that?
I think evolve is the right word, because, you know, I would just say that not a single member of the spy ring was ever captured.
That's pretty amazing.
After the Revolutionary War, all of the agents returned back to their day-to-day jobs, apart from Benjamin Talmadge, who, you know, helped found all of this and all of that. He ends up becoming a member of the House of Representatives for Connecticut, and all this. So I can't believe for a minute that he, you know, didn't have some influence in, you know, continuing a tradition of intelligence in the United States. So you could look at it as the sort of the father of any intelligence in the US. But as I say, we didn't really know about any of this until the 1930s. So this has been a very well-kept secret, even up until just under 100 years ago.
They really kept it under wraps. That's amazing.
I did read something about.
Come to light? Do you know?
Sorry, say that again.
How did it come to light in the 1930s? What happened? Did somebody come across some papers, or? As far as I remember reading, in essence, there wasn't. I think in fact, there was. I think his name was Osborne, or it was something like that. That's his surname, and there was the New York Historical Society. Mm-hmm.
Like I say, don't quote me on this one, but there was a paper that was being prepared on Nathan Hale, and it's from there that I understand it was quite late on. It was probably, I think it was this time of year, September, October in 1930, that some documents were discovered. The exact ins and outs, I'm not too sure, but it was to do with Nathan Hale. I do remember that part. And of course, then becomes the very exciting thing of you're discovering secret. And actually, the secrets that you're discovering are in fact secretive, because there's then this code of, who are these numbers, what are these numbers, and all of that. So I suppose since our understanding has further developed, for sure, and various people have started to write about them from, I think, the 50s, 60s into not academic text, but into books and novels and all of this. But I do feel that this is still quite a big secret. I don't think a lot of people necessarily.
That's like a great movie.
Yeah, and there was a TV series, I believe, about this. But apart from that, it would make a very good film.
I can see the opening scene. It's the execution of Nathan Hale, and then back at the ranch, wherever they are, they start making plans to make sure that this never happens again, and to develop a system for gathering intelligence. And then they go for it. It would be so cool, especially with the, different agents and the women involved, because like you said, nobody thought women knew anything back then. So we hear very little about women's involvement in anything very important other than having kids.
Some of the ciphers as well, some of the codes that we used in the cipher, if anyone wants to have a look at this, if you look at the letter H in the
H,
one,
you Americans.
or H, yes. I just use with H because herbs has an H in it. Just saying.
No.
If you want to look at H or whatever, it looks like a little UFO. So H does for some reason. So what you've got is A to Z and little symbols corresponding with each letter. So if you were to have a look at H, looks like a little UFO thing.
How funny.
Upper and the uppercase and lowercase have got different symbols. So C looks a bit like a sort of yin and yang, if you will.
And that's easy to find online.
Yeah.
What would a person want to Google?
Corpus Spyring cipher.
It's called perspiring.
Something like that. The image I have is far too low quality for us to have put it up on the for us to see on the in the show.
Okay.
But have a look. And please do have a look at all of this, because it's it is very interesting. I've got to say. So you've got. Can I just tell you one of my favourite stories about one of the women?
Sure.
Right. So you've got Anna Strong, as I've already mentioned. And her job is to relay messages and meet with someone called Caleb Brewster. And Caleb Brewster really is the person who's going behind enemy lines. Ultimately, if he's caught, it's sort of game over, if you will. And just one of my absolute favourite things, just the little things matter. So Anna Strong would relay messages, as I say. She'd meet with Brewster when he's come over the line. But what she would do is she would hang a black petticoat on a washing line or laundry line, whatever, to alert Brewster whenever a meeting was urgently needed, or if there was a new job for him, if you will. And it just reminded me of, I don't know if you remember the X-Files, where I think it was Mulder who'd put an X in his window, and then the next scene, someone's arrived because they've got the message or the bat signal and what have you. There it was, someone doing their laundry. Nobody would suspect that. I wouldn't. You wouldn't think, oh, look, they're hanging that black petticoat again. You just look.
They had black petticoats. That they were always white, but maybe not.
Well, maybe that was the because it was different. That was the idea.
That's funny. They were very clever, though, to use things that are just normal and not noticeable to anyone except for those who are meant to have the message. Because that would mean nothing to anybody except that one guy, Mr. Brewster.
Exactly. And this is against, as I say, a relatively well-established British military intelligence operation. And again, there is someone that I would like to just mention. Just before I do, I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the importance of slaves in the Culper spy ring. So there's an agent known as Cato, who was providing again information and intelligence because of his virtue as a slave. He was using dead drops, for example, to provide messages. So it's important that we understand that the spy ring is comprised of every part of society at that time. And I just thought I'd mention Cato.
What's a dead drop?
Well, in essence, where you're literally dropping something for it to be picked up at a later date.
Oh, I see. So you just leave something and then they go to that location later and pick it up, like papers or whatever it might be, money or anything.
Yeah. Now,
I see. What would be in it for some enslaved person to take that kind of risk?
I don't think there was much choice.
I was going to say, I guess they did.
The British had offered notional freedom to those who came to join the British side. I would note that Britain, it wouldn't be until 1830 before slavery was abolished in Britain. But that was the promise. Maybe there was an assumption that Washington would do the same.
Right. That was the initial thought, was that, well, maybe they knew it wouldn't be much different anyway, if they defected to the British side, because there still was slavery.
The difficulty is we have so few voices of slaves from the time. It's difficult to know what they were thinking, for example. I do know that at this period there was a diagnosis of a mental ill health condition. I forget its name, but for slaves who wanted
narcissism.
For slaves who wanted to escape, clearly they had some mental ill health, and you think,
oh, you mean a mental health situation with the enslaved people? Oh,
yeah, it was considered unnatural for them wanting to escape. Which you think,
oh my God!
I just want to bring in another character from the British side, though, if I can do, and this is someone called Major John Andre, whose family were, I think, Swiss and French. They were Huguenots. They were French Protestants who had to flee France because tolerance of religion had been abolished in France, and all Protestants were instructed to leave the country. So he's a major in the British Army, which, when you think about it, he's he's done well for himself, being of non-British origin, and with Huguenot ancestry myself, I felt a bit of an affinity to him. He's responsible for the British intelligence operation, and is ultimately the person who was negotiating with Benedict Arnold to turn over control of West Point to the British. He was ultimately, caught, again, thanks to the culpa spy ring, and again executed. But the story about him, I mean, we've got to just bear in mind with any sort of espionage, conflicts, what have you. These people doing their jobs, they're doing what they believe, and ultimately it's a job, isn't it? They're getting paid. But it was just the way in which John Andre was executed. He spoke to George Washington. Andre sort of appealed to Washington to be executed by firing squad. And this is important because if you're executed by firing squad, it's as a soldier rather than to be hung, which is, and certainly was the customary method of execution for spies. What is intriguing, though, one, Washington refuses that request, and he was hung. But The witnesses to his execution say that he placed the noose around his own neck, tightened it, and then, what's more is Lafayette, the French general and all of that, was brought to tears and wept, as did everyone else, because he held himself with such dignity and honor. Oh, what's curious, though, is he was married to someone called Peggy Shippen, who immediately, upon Andre's death, goes to marry Benedict Arnold, now the British. And in many ways, it's due to Benedict Arnold that John Andre is executed. So Andre himself is behind enemy lines, which for our purposes is in the American side. And Arnold, Andre completes his mission and then returns back to the coast to be picked up by a boat, only to find that there is no boat. Arnold corresponds with him and says, well, the easiest thing to do is to travel overland back to British lines, which was an insane thing to do because that's where he got caught. Now, again, what you've got there is counterintelligence by the Culper spy ring, who are by this point aware that there is correspondence between a senior general and the head of intelligence for the British side.
And at this time, was Arnold publicly known as a spy, or was he, it was just, they had begun to suspect him, and people like Washington and his group knew about him, but was it public yet that he had betrayed the...
It would be. I mean, the two things are going on at the same time. So Andre's capture is also concurrent with Benedict Arnold switching sides.
Okay.
At this point, at this point, no one is suspecting Arnold of anything. I mean, There is a little bit of suspicion because he keeps asking for money and he keeps asking for debts to be cancelled by the by Congress, and he's demanding this, and this because he'd been shot in the leg and had a limp essentially. He was removed mostly from active military duty and was growing frustrated. Clearly very frustrated with the fact that he couldn't go out and, show himself off. I mean, Arnold really is quite a big chauvinist, to be fair.
And why do you think he did choose what he chose in the end? Do you think that he was being courted by the British and offered some things if he would come back to their side, or did he have any kind of altruistic reasons or patriotic reasons or anything like that? Do you know?
Well, even in Britain, Arnold, if people do know him as a traitor. So, I think we're all on the same page with this. Trying to understand the reasons. I mean, he is introduced to John Andre by ultimately a relative of Benjamin Franklin. So there's a sort of meeting with William Franklin and one of his friends, Jonathan Odell. And it's from that Arnold and Andre are essentially corresponding. I think Arnold was turned. I think he was. I mentioned the debts, so he
Oh, yeah.
If he was to turn over the fort, Arnold was was asking for £10,000, which in today's money
It's a
is
lot of money in those days.
it's the equivalent of £1.7 million.
Oh my gosh!
So yeah, you've got all of this. Arnold is also facing court-martial for profiteering and all of this. And I think all of that, if intelligence officers know that you've requested millions and all of this, then you've got a buying price, which ultimately is the reason why he was paid by the British. He didn't receive. I think he was offered £20,000 by the British, which is about £3.5 million today.
Wow!
But
did he get it?
He got something. I don't think he quite got all of it, but he certainly did get something. But again, the plot is exposed just a little bit too late for him to be caught. And yeah, Arnold never reached West Point to hand it over, namely due to the works of Benjamin Talmage.
Great. It looks like we've used up our time. That was really great. We started out with the father of our country and, probably one of the most respected people in our history. And we ended up with poor old Benedict Arnold, whose name has been dragged through the mud for all these years. But, it was like, just as everybody knows the name George Washington, I think everyone knows the name Benedict Arnold, which is kind of interesting. But it's. I wondered what his incentive was, and of course, it's that age-old, enticement of money. It always goes down to the bottom line, doesn't it?
I will just say this before we go, that of the continental budget, around 10% of it was going to intelligence at the peak. I wonder what it is. And it just leaves you with a thought. I wonder what that is today.
What is it today? Yeah, that would be interesting to know. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. And thank you, James, again. I hope we get to do this again really soon. And join us next week for a brand new Night Vision. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok and Instagram and help us out, help us grow those channels as well. Also, don't forget to go on kgridb.com and sign up for our free newsletter. You can also join and become a member there if you want. But if you just would like to have the newsletter, it's perfectly free and you don't have to become a member to get it. It's published every month, around mid-month. So we've got a lot of great stories in there, this issue, and then we also put the issue online so you don't have to miss anything. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend and take care of each other. Bye.